Good morning, guys. Who else can be here? Let's see who else can be here on Friday. I don't see anybody. Joshua's here. Nothing, you fucking Frenchy fuck. I honestly think I should do a video about this knife because this is the first Microtech that I've had come in that actually has a fucking detent. My dog's barking, which is out of character. Wait one moment. Hey, what's wrong with you? This one has got a fucking detent. At first I was like, he must have gotten counterfeit. That's how you know if you got a counterfeit Microtech. You can actually take it apart and the detent works, which in this case, it has got Torx hardware and it has a pretty fucking strong detent. But I looked at it and I went and looked online, and some of the Microtech models are no longer featuring their proprietary hardware. I don't know if it is a cost-saving thing or if I had a thing out here, a thing of, there it is. I have a thing of denatured alcohol out here that I use for wiping stuff down. I hate that fucking leather. No, that was sarcasm, Robert. I'm having a horrible Friday so far. It has not been great so far this morning. There's a lot of adhesive residue on this knife that I want to get cleaned off before I start sharpening. It's bad for your stones to get adhesive on your stones. So it's a culmination of events. It's been a crappy month so far, as far as I haven't had much business. What business is what's making my existence unusually shitty. It has been rough this month. I currently have not even made my mortgage payment this month. There's stuff pending, but as far as what's in the bank so far this month, not even. I think I'm $300 shy of my mortgage and HOA payment. So this came in, like I said, it's an M390, and I don't understand. Can you guys see that? The detent hole? I don't have... Let's see, what's in my pocket right now? You can't see the detent hole on this knife anywhere. Most of my knives, you can't. There's a couple. There's no spot on this at any point where you can see the detent hole. I don't understand how... That's something I would want not exposed, because that allows... A detent hole allows it to... Being exposed allows it to catch stuff. I always wanted one, and when I was given the opportunity to take one in barter, even though I knew I needed the money, I just couldn't pass it up. It's not that it's ugly. The detent on this one is really stiff. It's not the aesthetics of it that so much bother me, it's the actual function of it. So you guys remember the Chad Nell, right? I've been going back and forth with the owner, the kid that owns it. He's a nice guy. I talk to him a lot. And talking about that's a lot of that's aesthetics. Whew, denatured alcohol smells bad. That Chad Nell we were talking about, he's like, oh, you said he didn't counterbore those. There's a spot down in on the thing. Yeah, the Nell that I did the, like, I wouldn't have accepted a lot of that stuff just because I would have wanted it differently. And he was like, you know, he was showcasing the pivot. And I was like, that's the same standard pivot that Kaiser uses on $80 knives. But his thing is, you know, some people hear things, but they don't listen. He's like, well, you said this and it wasn't true. He's like, so basically there's mill chatter and there's this. Apparently that's a floating backspacer. That's not my idea of a floating backspacer. There needs to be a definite gap. And it was not a clear defined gap. And then he was, but the things I was saying, what he's saying, well, you were being critical about this and this. Those were aesthetic features of that knife that I thought were poorly executed. You send me a knife. Speaking of which, he just texted me. But a lot of times I'm not big on the aesthetics of a knife, but if you're paying $1,000 for a knife, I mean, let's look at the aesthetics on this knife, because this is an attractive knife. I've always liked the SOCOM. This is a SOCOM Elite, 2018 SOCOM Elite. They brought it back. So he's arguing with me about, right now he's sending me emails about subsidizing, government subsidization of farm products, which I grew up on a farm and I 100% get it. You guys could not afford the milk you buy in the quantities that you buy it if it wasn't for government subsidization. I don't always agree with big government, but the subsidization of certain things like farm products, I get. But anyway, the aesthetics on this knife are done really well. Things counterbored, it's nice, smooth, and that's where I will get picky on aesthetics, is when I'm paying upwards of anything over, in my opinion, $300. Oop, didn't finger flick it hard enough. This one, gorgeous. Some of the other knives I get in, gorgeous. That Masakas that I did the review of, gorgeous. And anything that, you know, detracts from those lines this is pretty thin. This is ground really thin. But anything that's detracting from that at a price, when you're paying a price point like that, which that is just an art knife. That polished edge, he's not gonna ever cut anything with it. He has said he simply is going to, that sits on his computer desk. That's fine, it's a safe clean. But when I pay very much for a knife, I definitely think that there should not be flaws. Or what I perceive as flaws, you know? Especially in a custom knife like that. Now, he did buy that from the secondary market. Who knows? Maybe the guy that ordered it had, like I said in the video, maybe the guy had requested it that way. Who knows? You never can tell with these. I have noticed that the newer Microtechs are not ground near as well as the old ones were, as far as evening the grinds. But here's the thing. If you're going to send me a knife from your collection that you really love, you might want to think twice about that. I appreciate it when people do that, but the fact is, stuff that comes on my channel gets an honest opinion, even Ferrum Forge stuff. I'm friends with the boys, but if I told you guys before, I don't like the Scepter. But if you're going to send me something and I give it an honest review, don't get upset. Don't get butthurt when I, you know. People stop showing me their pictures of their kids after their kids were born, because I'd be like, that's an ugly baby. I don't fucking save anyone's feelings. I don't like the blade shape. Oh, there's Cody. You seem to be spending a lot on them fucking gas station knives there, Cody. I have to say that I think that the Scepter is the only model I truly didn't like. Now, I wouldn't have bought a Con because I'm not a fan of that blade shape, that Persian style. But I could look at them and say they were gorgeous. Pretty thin. I don't know. Who asked me? Somebody asked me a question. Brad, I don't know. You know I don't measure angles. Yours is gorgeous. And like I said, there's just something about that that Damasteel like you had on yours. Something about it that just gets so frighteningly sharp. I've compared it to SM100, which I have SM100. Yeah, it's. Did you feel? I mean, it gets sharp, like unusually sharp. It's a different kind of sharp. It's like very, very rarely am I leery of knives that I've sharpened. Yeah, sticky because it's cutting you. Very rarely when I sharpen a knife am I at all worried about the let's feel if it's sharp. SM100 and Damasteel and RWL 34. Those ones are scary. Scary how sharp they get. I refused, like, I wasn't touching yours. When I got done sharpening yours, it was just... feeling for, like, going like this, to feel for little flaws and burrs. That was it. There was no, hey, touching it. No. Nope. So I sharpened... groundskeepers for our HOA. I sharpened an SM100 Stinger for a local guy here, and this is how sharp SM100 gets. You know, Murray Carter says to do the 3-finger test, and your brain will stop you. You take your 3 fingers of your weak hand, and you start to press, and your brain will stop you. And that's you know, you can tell it's sharp. I did his SM100 Stinger, and he had it, and he's like, oh wow, that's... And before I could even stop him, he put his fingers on to do that 3-finger test, and just, he was like, oh shit. I was like, I was trying to stop it. I was trying to stop you. That stuff doesn't get normal sharp. It cut him before he even could realize it. He was just, oh fuck. SM100, that shit ain't natural. It ain't normal. And I have a love-hate relationship with sharpening it, because it's ceramic knives. I'm not gonna lie to you, I've had some ceramic knives that I've handled. Now I wouldn't want any because they're so easy to damage, and the way I use knives in the kitchen, the way my wife uses knives in the kitchen, there is no way they're going to last. Because the second you hit a bone, you're going to chip it. You have to be really, really cautious of how you're using a ceramic knife. But the ceramic knives that I have handled, holy shit. Good ones. The cheap ones, not so much. The cheap ones sometimes aren't. As good. So, what's everybody planning on doing for this Friday? Any big plans?
Yeah, my N-Tac is still my favorite knife. Why aren't you here? Luke, it's like a 6-hour drive. I know, that's... No excuse, Luke. There is no excuse. I drove to Arizona last weekend. Sharpening, 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 more sharpening. Yep, that's... When you turn it into a business, that's what you do. How you been, Ben? I've seen some of your posts. I just haven't commented on them on Instagram. Take a sabbatical once I get back from Canada, plan a trip down. Well, let me know. Let me know when you're coming down. Damn it. They did it to me again. Microtech's got a... Some of their grinds aren't great. I can't say that they've always been great, but usually their knives come really sharp. But then when you start to sharpen them, that's when you find the flaws in the grind. Little low spots, things like that, which, like I said, that Masakas. Later, Brad. I'm gonna play with some stuff in my head, Charles. I'll let you know. So that you know, the one that you want yellow and blue, the yellow that I'm going to have to do, I'm going to have to blast to get it adhered on that knife. It's going to be a little darker than what's in the flag, but it'll still be yellow and blue. So, I mean, I can't match that color. If I was able to do anodizing on stage, it would be okay. I'll get you close, though. I'll do a yellow ceramic and the blue handles for that cut-through one. No more factory edge. Oh, what I was saying. So if you're using stones and there is adhesive on your knife, clean your knife off real good before you start sharpening, because the adhesive will get stuck in your abrasives, and it's just gonna, it's not good for your stones. It gets stuff down in there. You can't really clean it up too well with water stones, especially on a coarser stone, because the stuff that you would normally use to clean up adhesive off of the stone is oil, and you don't want oil on water stones. So about the only way to do it is to try and resurface that stone to a point where you have no more adhesive bonded to it. On a finer stone, it's not going to be near as hard as it would be on a coarse stone. Like this is a 220. So I am technically still doing a bit of reprofile on this. How's that? If you want to get a piece of 20 CV and cut a knife design, could I send it to you for heat treat? Yes, you can send it to me for heat treat. I just want to give you a heads up, Ben. It is expensive because it takes me an entire day. Heat treating something takes an entire day. get your rough cutout done first. Don't do any pre-heat treat grinding. No heat treat grinding, because what happens is when you use a coarse device and cutting, now you've made stress risers. Even those scratches don't seem like they're very deep. They're in the material enough that that's a spot where the stress can crack. So do your rough cutout, then heat treat. It's gonna save you pain in the ass where it might warp along the edge. It's gonna save you all that stuff. Just leave it, get your blank cutout and leave it and send it to me. I've done it for a couple people on here. I don't think me doing it would be as expensive as sending it off to a heat treat facility, but it's still not going to be like, it's not the same price as like sharpening a knife. That is the wrong stone. You cannot go from 220 to 5,000. You cannot do it. You can, it's just not going to work. It's going to take you all day. Hey Luke, how many Makos do you have? Just for my idle curiosity. I had to keep correcting a dude. I knew after you and I talked about it, I remembered the Furco was the first. The Furco was the first collaboration. After you and I talked about the small one, then you had the Mako, and then you had the spinner. And I had a guy keep telling me, he's like, oh, that Furco Mako. I was like, it's not a Furco. Furco was a model. He's like, no, it's a Furco. The Furco, I thought it was smaller. I have to take, I know there's one in the shop. I'll have to take a look at it. But this guy just kept, he's like, no, it's a Furco because it's collaboration. I was like, no, the Furco was a knife. The Mako was a knife. The spinner was not. It's not a Furco. Yeah, Z Finite. I like Z Finite. The more I've sharpened it, it's up there with things that get ridiculous sharp. It's up there too. Spidey Chef is in LCN 200N, which is basically the same thing. And it gets really, really, really sharp too, because it's got such a fine grain. That's what it is. The finer the grain structure. Some of the that Crucible powdered 154 cm, it's such a fine grain structure. It gets so ridiculously sharp as well. But still not like Damasteel, not like SM100, but they're up there. They're getting up there with. Yeah, I've sharpened Crewware. It's not that big a deal. I think it would get destroyed in a pocket. I think the Hummingbird would get destroyed in a pocket as a keychain knife. And then to take one of those apart and re-anodize it, as tiny as everything is, I would have to say that I would probably. There's people who send me stuff and they're like, oh, well, it shouldn't cost as much because it's smaller. I was like, actually, the smaller it is, the harder it is, because manipulating tiny parts and things, it's like, I have to take, where'd it go? I have a Benchmade AFO. I have to take this apart now that it's sharp. I have to take this one apart and give it a spa treatment. Well, the thing is, it's not the taking apart of an auto that's a problem, one of these push buttons. It's all the tiny parts, and everything's under spring tension. And the second they come apart on their own, they go, okay, hey, parts are going everywhere. It's apart. Putting it back together and keeping everything positioned while it's under tension and getting the blades, the spring in the blade, and then into the notch while you've got your release button, and then this lock is in the right spot. Everything has to be held, and then you can put the top scale on. Well, sometimes in between, shit just comes apart. I took apart that Microtech Mini SOCOM. It must have taken me 2 hours to finally get that thing back together the way it was supposed to be, because every time you'd get something positioned, something else would move, because you're dealing with stuff under spring tension. I needed like one more hand. That's what I needed. I needed an extra fucking hand. I don't like taking autos apart. I don't mind taking the Microtechs apart, the Microtech Ultratechs, because they're easy. That spring is it's not really under tension. It kind of is a little under tension in there, but it's not like under tension like a push button auto or a push button out the front where you have to reset it, where it sits under tension. It's a lot easier to get a Microtech Ultratech put together. You can take it apart and nothing comes flying out, and then you just take that whole spring assembly. I've taken mine apart and cleaned it up a couple times. I don't have the tools for it anymore. They've managed to walk away somehow. They're you know what one's a nightmare to take apart? Look up the reassembly instructions for a Benchmade Infidel. It's got a bunch of little springs in it, like tiny little springs that are like leaf springs that are in there as well. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, what a nightmare. I had a military guy that had been issued one. He carried it for a while. And this is when I still worked at the base. And he's like, look, I don't know what I did. I think I put it together wrong. I don't know what I did wrong. And I had to look up, like basically download the inside pictures with step-by-step instructions on how to put that thing back together. And that wasn't, it was all under spring tension or anything. It was just that the parts were so tiny on that one. And I personally think that Infidel is, yeah. That's where most of these came from. Now there's some stuff you have issue, and then you have stuff that is signed out to you. So you have some stuff that you sign out and then has to be returned. There's a difference between the two. So like, I had to turn in my bulletproof vest, my interceptor vest, my plates, my helmet, my optics, night vision goggles, all the stuff that I had been, that was TOA gear. So you have TOA, which is your, what's it stand for? TOA, T-O-A, T-O-N-A, which is Total Authorized, I can't remember what it stands for, but you have stuff that's on TOA, which belongs to the unit. It's given to you for use, but it belongs to the unit. Well, then you have just general issue shit, which it's given to you, you carry it, uniform stuff, you wear it, they don't want that back. I have 2 cots that I slept on, and they were going to throw them away when I gave them back. I was like, don't throw them away. They're like, well, you know, we can't, you've used it, you slept in it, my sleeping bag. anything that you pretty much have worn. Gear belt, holster, I gave those back. Those were TO&A. So for those of you guys that don't know how that works, there's stuff that's a little pricier that winds up, it belongs to the unit you're attached to. And they inventory that. Stuff that you're issued, you have to prove you still have it. But when you transfer, it goes with you. It's like loaner tools at Home Depot. You use it for a while, but you gotta give it back. What was that, Charles? Theater operations. It really doesn't matter what theater operations. Most of the stuff that was issued to me was issued here. So, so I got a feeling that my Wi-Fi is starting to get a little glitchy. And right now I know what the issue is with that. It's hot here. We're going through a heat wave, and I have a fan blowing on my router, but I don't think it's cooling it properly. And I've been losing internet intermittently here at the house trying to talk to my daughter. So when I was talking to her on FaceTime yesterday, I kept losing enough signal to talk to her well. So I did shipping yesterday, so you know, I'm gonna say something because I usually don't throw my hat in the ring when it comes to issues like, I don't think that this has anything to do with global warming per se. I mean, yeah, I imagine that we have something to do with it, but if you look at the amount of pollutants that go into the air from your average volcano eruption, it's way more than we're producing as a combined group. The world has went through climate, yeah, exactly. The world has went through climate change for as long as we've been able to watch it. You can see it in the rings of trees. You can see it in the ice bores that they do in the Arctic. Climate change is a natural thing. And I do believe what we're having right now is we're experiencing just some climate changes. And the whole thing is, like, people here in San Diego are like, oh, it's global warming and it's not. And I was like, no, things are trying to return to a natural state. San Diego is a desert. If you take all the people out of San Diego and you stop modifying its climate, because what we have here is we turned this into kind of a Mediterranean kind of climate. You take the humans out of the mix here and this will revert back to what it was, which is a desert. Because you get away from you get inland 6-8 miles where I'm at, you can feel the definite change in the climate. I will say it has gotten more humid and things like that. But that's because there's so many people that have moved out. Like out here, I'm close to El Cajon, which is, it's pretty desert out there. It's really dry and stuff like that, but it gets humid because people move in and then they want a yard and things like that. And so they're trying to change the natural order of things here, and so then you start getting humid. That's like Phoenix. I went to visit my buddy Q in Phoenix, and we talked about it a few years ago when he was still in Japan, about the fact that the climate in Phoenix has changed so much with all these people moving in. Now everybody wants a yard. And so it's so much more humid. I mean, it's not near as humid as it is here, but it's so much more humid now in Phoenix than it used to be. We kind of screw things up. Swimming pools. People want swimming pools. That puts a lot of moisture into the air. Don't get me wrong, I like going to the pool occasionally. But Seki City, Japan is stupid humid. Pretty much everywhere in Japan, and I'll tell you why. Japan has got such humidity because it's tropical and it rains like all summer. So you have right now is the monsoon and typhoon season. So right after that, you have the rainy season, which starts beginning of summer. Right after that, you have monsoon typhoon season, where you have the big storms that come in, and it just basically, it rains several times a week. And for as much as Japan is a first world technical culture, even when you're out there in big cities, once you get outside of the city, it's all woodlands. It's all woodlands and green. Japan has a really high population in dense areas. It's not like here in San Diego, it spreads out. If you're in the city, boom, you're in the city. The little suburb areas, like you can drive 5 minutes to my in-laws' house and you feel like you're in the country. But 5 minutes later, you're downtown Kurume, which is the 3rd largest city on that island, I think. 2nd largest on the island. Right outside of Fukuoka, which is the 3rd largest city in the country. And, you know, areas like Nagasaki, where you're like, oh, Nagasaki, that must be a big city. Hiroshima, oh, it is a big city, and they kind of are. But the second you get out of town, like you saw in my videos, there's nothing, and it's hot. It's hot. Like, I talked to Isabel yesterday. It was 87 degrees at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I had checked the past weather. That's because it didn't get below 85 at night. It's as cool as it got. Right now, I'm looking at 81, but I got a breeze. And it can be stifling hot. This is true. Peter, you were not wrong. Those were aesthetic issues that I listed as aesthetic issues. Okay, let's put it to the test. Do you guys think I was wrong about that Chad Nell? Everybody else chime in. Peter's here. Was I wrong about the aesthetic issues I saw in the Chad Nell at the price? Let's ask the community. That's not counterboard. That's slightly recessed. Slightly recessed. Not counterboard. It was damn near surfaced, and it had those spots in it so that the pivot didn't move. If he had just counterboarded it a little bit, it would have made the lines of that knife. And I'm not saying like counterboard it down in so it's flat. Just so that what was the price? He paid 18. Maker's price was 13. But to tell me that he was doing it to showcase the pivot, that's a fucking cheap ass pivot, bro. You can buy those pivots. You can buy those pivot screws. It's the same ones, like I said, that fucking Kaiser uses in their $80 knives. It's the same. It's a standard pivot. It's not like if he had made his own proprietary hardware and thrown it in, I could see that. It screws up the lines. See how smooth lines on that knife are? And then it's recessed down in, and then when you do anodizing on it, it doesn't wear. It doesn't rub up against things. It doesn't fuck things up on the knife. I anodized this for Pip, and it got carried a lot, and there is no change in the anodizing on that pivot that I did. I did that a year ago, almost. And I know it's been in and out of his pocket. It's been in and out of my pocket a ton. It's little things like that that are small. You might say picky Andy, but I'm telling you right now, I pay more than $200 for a knife. There better be some fucking specific aesthetic cues, and it better not just be that it's a Timascus scale. You can throw Timascus on shit and make it look cool, but if you don't do all the things to make it smooth and seamless, then you miss the bus. In your case, the short bus. Keep going to that mirror polish. Telling you right now, I said specifically he did a very good job on the mirror polish. But if you listen to that video and hear what I said, hear it. Don't just listen. Hear what I said. I said, these are now the issues that I would not have accepted in this knife. You don't want my honest opinion? Don't send me a knife for review. I'm telling you right now. I find flaws in one of the things that I did not realize until after I had shot the video on the Masakas. I had cleaned it up and I was knocking water, and the tolerances, the gap in that is so tight that you can hear the blade tap the handles. I would have put that in a video if it wasn't already shipped. I had to ship it that day. I found issues with that knife, which was much better done. As far as it's polished, yeah, that's great. But I mean, woohoo, polished blade. Thanks, I can't use it. I would much rather have a blast and tumble, something more robust, or a coating. But, like I said, it could have been 100% that he made that knife to order for someone, and that's the way they wanted it. I don't see why you would have. Okay, let's just agree to disagree on that one. It's counterbored slightly. It could have been done a lot better. It should have been done a lot better, because that gives you lines that look like shit on a knife. When everything else is smooth and round, and then it comes up and it hits the fucking, and the screw is sticking up out, it looks like crap. If that's just the way you want to be, if that's what you're going to be known for doing a really good polish on a blade and then fucking kind of dialing it in on other shit, I mean, that's fine if that's the way he wants to be, but I'm a bit of a perfectionist when I do things. That's why all of your screws and all of your parts are all the same color, even though I had to do different voltages on that stuff, because none of those screws on that knife I refinished for you they weren't all the same voltage. I had to play with them a little bit just to get them in I know where the ballpark is. I told you the voltage for the ballpark, but you know, had to keep inching it up on the fine, like half a volt to get it to match the way I wanted it to. And it, you know, at $1,000+ I, the consumer, should find no problems. You can tell me that's a floated backspacer all you want. That's not floating. It's not a proper floating backspacer. So we'll just agree to disagree on this one. Pardon. I haven't eaten anything yet. Probably should eat something before I fucking start heading up to the shop, because I have some refinishing to do today. Tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of scratch pattern right up here at the tip. I gotta get out. There it is. If you have to look for the gap in a floating backspacer, then it's not truly a floating backspacer. Look at that Masakas. You could see it was perfectly floated. It had gaps and spacers in there to hold it off from the scales. You're running people off from my feet. I choose no longer to continue in this vein with this fucking line of dialogue. You got your knife back. It's really polished. Play with it. Go ahead and spend another $1,000. to put a fucking Timascus scale on the other side. If that's what you want to do, it's your knife. For me, trying to change your opinion, it's pointless. And it's just going to lead to hate and discontent. For you to try to change mine, give it up, because I'm never going to change my opinion. Is it an attractive knife? Yes. Would I have bought it? No. Would I have sent it back? Immediately, yes. Hey, this one has an actual detent on it. There it went. Almost too strong. That's just a brand new knife. It hasn't even broken yet. Microtech. It's done. That was not too rough. Spent a lot of time talking to you guys. I could have gotten done a lot faster. Find a little bit of there we go. All done. It's gotta get. No, I thought that this guy had gotten a fake, because if you look, that is not the proprietary hardware. So I went to the trouble of checking the Marfione, Anthony Marfione's catalog, and looking at it, and found images of it on their website where it is actually using that hardware. So guys, what does? It's shitty. Sharpened this. This was for my friend Brian Wallace. He got a Pro Series. I sharpened it for him, but he got a Pro Series, and he had Christopher do the refinish on it for him, and it came out really, really nice. This is one of the things I was thinking about doing on Charles Anderson's bars. I can't say it in video. I can't say it. I cannot say that in a video. I do not need that kind of controversy on my channel. So let's just leave it at that. Don't say anything else about that whole controversy, that online bar fight. Hardware is all... I have not dropped this yet. So let's just leave it at that. All right, here we can talk about it in the Instagram stuff. You can DM me, and we can discuss that way, but I'm not doing it here. Yeah, hardware looks really good. I like the gold pivot with the black hardware, black pocket clip. So, but as typical with WE's S35VN, I think they do it about as good as anybody. Now, it's an Instagram online thing, and it was about the ProLine Pro Series thing with McGinnis, and it just... WE's, because you can only take this. That's 3000 grit. That then I stropped real well. But there's something about WE's, the way they run their S35VN. I've got several of their knives in S35VN. I think they do about the best. No, this is a guy, Brian Wallace. He comes by the forge every once in a while. He got one, and he had Chris do it. He gave it to Chris to do, and then got it handed off to me for sharpening.
So it's pretty fucking sexy. Whew, what's left? So, since I'm pretty much done with everything, I got a little bit of time because I'm not heading up to the shop till because I want to take the dog out. There will be a review, probably today. I'm probably going to try and shoot it today, of the Ferrum Forge Pro Series, because I have Charles Anderson's 3 knives here, so I can give people an idea of some of the different designs. So we have the hex, that was the bars. There's the hex. Man, they are just buttery smooth. And people are like, well, I don't get it. It's a production. Every one of these knives, I watched Elliot finishing. Was it yesterday? Day before? They went through every one of these knives by hand themselves to make sure that the action was proper, that there was no blade play. They checked everything on these knives themselves. They QA'd every one of those knives before they ever went out to the dealers to then go to you guys. So, reconnect. Come on. Let me go in the house for a minute. I'm going to end this. So, no, they are not numbered. They just say first production run. Start what? Yeah. So yeah, I had a bad connection. I think my router's trying to overheat. It is hot in the house. So anyway, guys, that's the end of it. I just hadn't done a live feed in a while because it's just been too hot. My phone overheats, the router overheats. It's just too much. So I figured it was a little cooler today. Probably get away with it. So, all right, guys, that's the end of it. I'm going to try and shoot a video. If I get paid. There's a guy that owes me the money. I can't start making knives and until I get belts, and I can't get the belts until he pays me. So I'm working on it. Hopefully it'll get better. But I was hoping to grind at least a couple knives today, but I don't have any belts. But you guys want to see something cool? This is Matt's knife, and I was able to get at least enough of a polish on this with those die maker stones to get the contrast he wants when I blast a finish on that, and then tumble it for a little bit. So that one's gonna look cool. We just gotta figure out what the fuck we did with the handles. Me and Nico cannot seem to figure out where I put the handles. I don't want to have to make another set of those Kevlar handles. That was a fucking nightmare. I mean, I've got a piece of it, but I got enough to make another set of handles, but I really don't want to. That was the worst experience making Kevlar handles for that knife. So, all right, guys, take it easy, and I will talk to you next time.